it's funny. You actually lived right next to the 75th precinct, and if you're from Brooklyn or from New York City, really, you know that precinct, I think, still to this day is one of the worst, one of the highest crime areas in all of New York City. Talk to me about living next to the 75th precinct in its heyday in terms of crime.
It was crazy. I used to live, so my house was literally next to the precinct. So it's right on Exeter Street. So they have the entrance where the cars go in and they park. That was the back entrance to the precinct. And I never forget, my sister and I used to always run like early in the morning. I mean, whatever. It was most of the day. It was mostly me. We used to run to the kitchen, in the back kitchen window, and we used to look to the back. And we used to see the back entrance of the precinct, and we used to see these cops going in there with prisoners. It was crazy because you know the stuff that you witnessed, you know, back then, you know, and you know, 75 had a little history. So, you know, back then they used to take those prisoners in there, and you see all the beatdowns, you see all the, you know, the fights going in there, like guys, you know, resisting, trying to go in there, you know. So as a little kid, me and my sister watching all this, I'm like, wow, man, I used to love it. I used to see the cops come in uniform. I'm like, man, I used to love it. I used to tell my sister, man, I said, when I grow up, I want to be a cop. And my sister was like, you know what? When I grow up, I want to be a cop too. So we used to sit in the windows. These cops used to wave to us from the back. It was great, man. It was great, you know.
That's so interesting.
It was great. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, I didn't have a great experience with police officers, you know, even though I wanted to be a cop. But, you know, it was.
What type of problems did you have with the police?
Let me give you one. I mean, as much as I love cops, and I'm a retired sergeant from the police department. You know, I went. You know, I'm not gonna say that I hate the cops because I love the police.
Yeah.
But back then, as much as I loved them, I used to hate them. Unfortunately, because they didn't know how to treat people, you know, and you know, obviously you see the changes now. There's a lot of changes, so it's you know, there's a lot of changes to the better. You know, as much as people think it's bad, it's not bad. It's a lot to the better. But back then, man, I'll give you a quick story. One of the turnoff and one of the stuff that really that turned me against the police officer was that my father. I was a young kid, man, and my father and I'm in the car. My sister, my father. It's my father, me, and my sister in the car waiting for my mother to come down from her apartment, you know, from the apartment, and she's locking the door. A cop, one of the police officers pulled up behind them, and they start honking, you know, like, you know, doing the whoop whoop, you know, so he can move. And my father, you know, is putting his hands down, saying, "Wait, you know," he's pointing to my mother. You know, I'm waiting for my wife. She's coming down. And so they whoop him again so he can move. And he's like, you know, like 1 minute. Now my mother's crossing the street, coming into the car, and they jumped out of the car. They approached him. Man, let me tell you, they started cursing him out. They told him to get out of the car. He didn't want to get out because he didn't do anything wrong. He was just waiting for my mother. They beat the living shit out of him. Sorry for the you know, but they beat him up so bad, and they pulled him out of the car, beating him in the ground. Imagine this is in the maybe late 70s, early 80s. So you, as a young kid, you know, you're looking at this and you're like, you know, I'm crying, screaming, me and my sister.
So you're
you know,
8, 9 years old.
Bro. Yeah, I'm somewhere around 8, 9 years, somewhere around there, between 8, 11.
8 to 10.
Yeah, somewhere
11,
around there.
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing these guys beating the shit out of him, stomping him, kicking him, all these cops hitting him with a nightstick. Then they cuff him. And then they drag him into the precinct. One guy grabbed one leg, the other guy grabbed the other leg, and they just dragged him on the floor into the precinct. And they locked him up because he was blocking the street. And he comes out with a summons. They gave him like a disorderly conduct summons. So, you know, they didn't even charge. So they beat the shit out of him and gave him a summons and let him go.
Wow. So policing was different back then.
Back then, yeah. Back then, whenever they tell you to do something, you do it.
Well, it's funny, again, we mentioned the 75th precinct, how infamous it is for having high crime in the area. It's also infamous for Michael Dowd being a corrupt cop. You ever have any run-ins with him?
Listen, I never, because I was younger, so fortunately I never had any run-ins with him specifically, but as growing up and being in the neighborhood, I saw these cops. You see them. You know, I you know, when I'm watching the documentary, I'm like, what? I remember all those faces, you know, and I remember one specific story many years ago. I was a young kid. they locked up a guy, one of the neighborhood drug dealers, and they grabbed him. They raided the corner. They jumped. They beat everybody up. They locked this kid up, and this guy up. Next thing you know, he's walking out. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I see one of the guys say, wait, what the fuck? Didn't they just lock you up for drugs? He goes, yeah, they stole all my money and they took all my drugs and my cash. I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, man.
Yo, this was some next level thing. So
I mean, I don't really like talking about stuff like that, but
hey, it's the truth.
But fortunately, this is what happened. I mean, the job changed a lot. The police department changed a lot. It's not like as crazy as it used to be. But back then it was. Listen, they used to pull me over for. Let me tell you another quick story. So now I'm in boxing. I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but let me tell you a quick story. Where I'm, so one day I pulled out. I leave my mother's house. I get in my mother's car. I'm driving to the gym. I'm going to Starry City. I'm about 18 years old, and so now I'm in the car and I got my boxing equipment in the trunk, and all of a sudden I get pulled over by two anti-crime guys. And then next thing you know, they pull me out at gunpoint. They got the guns out. Get out of the car. I'm like, what the fuck? So I get out of the car. They got me. They tore, like checking my, to see if I have anything on me. They're checking the car. I mean, they literally taking out the back seat. They literally ripped up the back seat looking for stuff. They went through everything inside the car. They opened up my trunk. They opened the trunk up and they took my bag out. They took my boxing glove, all the stuff that I had in the bag. They took everything out. Then the guy behind me like, where's the drugs? Where's the guns? So I'm like, what? I said, listen, I don't use drugs. I'm a boxer. I said, and I don't need a gun. This is my gun right here, my fist. So then I said, yeah. So then I turned around and I told the guy behind me, I said, tell me the real reason why you pulled me over. My man, he grabbed my head, bumped my head against the car, and gave me a knot in my eye, and I started crying from the anger.
Yeah.
So he goes, you speak when you're asked to speak. And then he turned around and he goes, oh, look at the baby crying. So I'm like this now. So now I'm clenching my fist because I'm so angry. And I'm like, I said, this motherfucker. I'm like saying to myself, I'm going to knock this dude out. I said, because I know once I hit him, I'm going to put him out. Because, I'm a boxer. And, I was known for knocking people out. So I'm like, I just got to put one hook in his jaw and he's out. And I was like this, and he's like, oh, look at the little baby. Oh, you're going to punch me? He said, you're going to punch me? Go ahead, take your best shot. And something got into him. It must have been God, man. Something said to me, don't do it. You're going to hit him, you're going to knock him out, and you're going to get your ass kicked, and then your whole life is going to be destroyed. And I just ate it up, and I let it go.
Wow.
I let it go. But I ran into him later on in the academy.
Wow. Oh, hold on. You got to finish that story.
So,
you ran into him in the academy?
So then, I said, my motto was, even though I wanted to be a cop, I looked up to them. I kind of hated the cops then after that because, we're going through a lot of, bad experience.
Yeah.
And then that same day, I said to myself, you know what? If you can't beat them, you join them. That was my exact word. If you can't beat them, you join them. But I didn't mean it like in a malicious way. I meant, like, if I go in there, maybe I can make a change, man. Which I did. We could touch that. We could touch on that later on. But I said, let me go in there. Maybe I could make a change and make some of these people understand some of these. And the funny thing is, it was a white cop and a black cop. The guy that banged my head was a black cop. So so it wasn't like it was just white cops. So
it was everybody.
If you wore that uniform, you were a cop.
It was blue versus East New York.
East
resident.
New York, exactly.
I got you.
So now years later, I become a cop and I graduate, and then I'm going back to the police academy for training, because when you become a cop, you got to go to training. So I never forget. I was walking up the steps to the academy. He was walking down because the academy they had one stairs going up and one coming down. So that's the only way you could do, like one. So I'm walking up the stairs. He's walking down, and I looked at him. I said, hey, what's going on, bro? So he turned around and goes, hey, what's going on? So he's saying, what's up to me? Because he thought he knew me from the police department.
Yeah.
I said, yo, you don't remember me? Now I'm like 22, 23, a few years later.
And so how old were you when he banged your head?
I was 18.
18, all right.
So I wasn't a cop yet. So, I
want to know like the age.
Yeah, so I took the test right after that. So then, so I said, hey, you remember me? He's like, oh, no, I don't know where you work. I said, no, not where I work. I said, where I'm from. I said, you worked in the 7-5 precinct? He goes, yeah. I said, yeah, I was born and raised in East New York, in Brooklyn, right? I lived right next to the 75th precinct. I said, I'm the guy you pulled over. You remember the guy you pulled over on Pickens Avenue? I said, you pulled me out of the car at gunpoint. I said, then you banged my head against the car because I asked you why you pulling me over. I said, you remember? And he started, I pulled so many people over, and he just kept walking away. I said, yeah. So as he kept walking away, because now he saw that I was, and everybody's, now all the cops were looking like, what the fuck is going on here? I said, yeah. I said, just remember, not everybody in Brooklyn are bad. And then, but...
Wow. No, thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that, because I'm from East New York. Now, I don't know this cop. I don't know how long his career was.
Oh,
I could have ran into this guy, and he could have done something like that to me. So I appreciate you sending that message to that dude.
But that was the whole goal, man. When I after that incident, I said, let me take the police test. I said, let me and join the police department. I mean, aside from all that, my trainer Jimmy O back then used to always motivate me. He's like, listen, man, don't just think about boxing. You gotta focus on doing something with life. And so he used to ask me, what is it you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, yeah, I want to be a cop. So he's like, well, you could be a cop. So he goes, you should, So, but that was one of my goals, man. Trying to change the police department. But
right.